Rules meeting for actually what was scheduled for on February 24th to order. If we could have an invocation. Melvina, would you give the invocation, please?
Ord galandi he og jili hellig han deski atin ho. Nivna det dosta heldig do hest han do lovska. Oswatli lohi jelegi skadu. Og jili hellig det deski atin hastana nole. Wojik tidisa ni deski atin he says. Father, we just thank you for this day. We just thank you for all your blessings, Lord, that you have bestowed upon this nation. Lord, just be with each and every one as we go about the business of Turkey Nation for the betterment. We just ask that you just guide us into the future. And thank you for what you've done in the past. In your name, amen.
All right, Shelley, would you do roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mike Shambaugh,
Here.
Joe Deere, Keith Austin,
Here.
Danny Callison, here. Julia Coates, Sean Crittenden, here. Mike Dobbins, here. Rex Jordan, here. Johnny Kidwell, here. Darrell Legg, here. Wes Snowfire, here. Dora Petzkowski, here. Joshua Sam, here. Melvina Shotpouch, honey. E.O. Smith, here. Condessa Teehee, honey. Victoria Vasquez. Honey. We have a quorum.
Okay, if you've had a chance to look over the minutes, I need a motion. We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All in favor? All opposed?
Okay.
Motion carries. Okay, for reports from the Marshal Service, we have Shannon Buell. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Besides the monthly tax that you have in front of you, a couple of things that I want to point out. Dave Roberts.
Your microphone, sir.
Working? Can you hear me now? Okay. Dave Roberts was the second appointed marshal after the new Constitution. He was a Huey helicopter pilot in Vietnam and then switched to Blackhawks, got out of the military, joined Tulsa Police Department, left Tulsa Police Department to ATF, was an ATF special agent, retired as the RAC for ATF and came here as the marshal. He hired me, he hired Scott Craig, he hired about 4 of my command staff back in 2000. So he pretty much pointed the way to the current Marshal Service, how it is now. And he passed. His funeral will be Thursday in Tulsa, but I wanted to bring that up. Also, an employee, not my employee, but he carries my commission, Ryan Tiger, young man, probation parole, contracted COVID. He's in Tahlequah City, and it doesn't look good for him. So please pray for Mr. Tiger that he gets well. He's actually an employee of Sarah's, but he carries my commission. So keep him in your prayers this week. So other than that, if there's any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Shannon, is the law enforcement for all our casinos, are they provided by the local police departments at every one of our casinos?
No, the casinos don't have law enforcement. Now, they have jurisdiction there. Yeah. So the people that carry the guns in the casinos are casino security. But like, let's say here in Tahlequah, we can respond, the county can respond, and Tahlequah City can respond. So any agency, that's why we're crossed with every agency in our area. Any agency that's crossed can respond to the casino.
Okay, so like Fort Gibson Casino.
Fort Gibson PD can respond, we can respond, Muskogee County can respond, yeah. Anybody can respond.
We have armed guards at all the casinos?
Yes, C&E does. They're supervised and ran by C&E.
Okay, thank you, Marshal. Thank you, Chair.
Hey, Bill, have we discussed or thought about doing more community type patrolling, or like for the Belfont area? Like, I know I'd like to see somebody maybe not housed there 24/7, but use that office that's there and just be on site to,
Well, quite frankly, we can have satellite offices right now, we just don't have the staffing, we don't have the numbers. On any given shift, I have 4 people on for 14 counties. So if I put one in Bellefonte, that leaves me 3 for the entire 7,000 square miles. So I just don't have it right now, you know. At some juncture, if we get the numbers up, I would like to see the agency split to a south agency and a north agency. That way you can actually specialize in your area. Right now, my officers are having to work in 2 federal districts, so what federal judges want in Tulsa isn't necessarily what the federal judges want in Muskogee. So my officers have to know all of it. So once we get the numbers where we need them, I can split the agency, have one agency north. That way they can specialize with what the judges want, what the AUSAs want in the north, and that will be their area. And then the south would do the same there. So that's my future plans. I'm at 44 now. My analysis, I need to be at about 80, 84 before I can make that split. But that's my long-term goal, is to get to where we can be more based out in the communities. But right now, with 4 on a shift, there's just absolutely no way. They're running calls, you know. And then we took over the transports for the courts. So, you know, we're transporting prisoners all over the place. We're looking at hiring transport officers now to help that, because you all pay good money for marshals. I don't need them just transporting prisoners. So we're looking at getting some transport officers hired, and that will hopefully relieve that burden that we have on the transport of prisoners. So.
All right, next up from the Office of the Attorney General is Sarah Hill.
Good morning.
Good morning, Sarah.
I appreciate Shannon mentioning Ryan Tiger. Ryan's only worked for our office for about 6 months. In 6 months, he quickly was doing the work of at least 2 people by himself. Such a hardworking and accomplished person. We have missed him every day that he has been out of the office, and we want him to be able to recover and be back to us as soon as he can be. But we're very worried about him, so I appreciate him mentioning Ryan. So there's almost, you're going to see me again pretty shortly in the March rules, but there's a lot that's happened since the last time I reported to you, so I'm going to take just a few minutes of your time to go over it, and then hopefully I'll at least catch the high points and then can catch you up on some additional things at the next Rules Committee. First of all, I wanted to update you on our tribal court cases, and this will probably be the last time I'll do this kind of report. Of course, I'll always report to you, but I may change up the format a little bit. After we put out a 1-year report on March 10th. March 11th was exactly 1 year since the Hogner case was decided. The quickest year of my life has been the year since Hogner was decided, and we made a lot of progress. In my first report to you in March of last year, I reported that we had filed over 375 new cases. Now, keep in mind that in the previous years, we would probably file between 65 and 85 cases in any given year. For the entire year. And in March, we filed 375. As of March 10th of this year, the office had filed 3,700 felony and misdemeanor cases in the Cherokee Nation District Court. So that's just a glimpse into how far we've come from where we started, where we were in previous years, just a tremendous amount of work. Our Juvenile Justice Division, which has only existed for about a year, which they investigate juvenile delinquent issues, has responded to 605 referrals and filed nearly 100 petitions. And in those petitions are often multiple counts against individual juveniles. So that's just a snapshot of what 1 year of post-McGirt has looked like for the Cherokee Nation. In addition to that, so included in those numbers are the 2,314 tickets that were filed with the district court, so another 2,300 tickets. We now have 90 cross-step agreements. We have 18 municipalities that have entered into our municipal agreements so that they could retain the revenue from those fines. And so that's just a little snapshot into the previous year. There is a year one report on the AG's office website where you can go and take a little bit deeper dive into some of the things that we've been doing over the last year. I also, we've expanded from 19 employees in the AG's office to 52. So I thought all of that stuff would be interesting to you to know that the resources that we come to you and ask for have not just been sitting idly around. We have been busy putting to work the resources that you have been putting toward the Cherokee Nation. Also, we had a jury term in February. A jury was called and impaneled and heard cases. In that jury term, it was the court's third jury term of the year. There were 47 cases that were called at pretrial, and usually at jury trial, there are a lot more cases that are called for pretrial than actually make it to the jury, because nothing encourages a case to settle like that impending jury trial. It's time to take the stand and go in front of the jury and take your chances. That tends to get everybody, tends to settle a lot of cases out. So of those, there were several that were continued, 7 were set for trial. And one case was tried to 3 guilty verdicts, one account of assault and battery with a deadly weapon, 1 count of assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, and 1 count of animal cruelty. So we were able to try, that case was tried to a successful, from my office's perspective, jury outcome. And so another case, there was a plea agreement, and then there were several of those other 7 cases were continued, which that's just the normal, that's what happens when you have jury trials set. In one case, the individual failed to appear for trial and an arrest warrant was issued. And then in another case that was set for trial, the case was picked up by the U.S. Attorney's Office and tried in the federal courts. We'll have another jury term in April. On the Supreme Court front, I wanted to just again remind you that the Castro Huerta case, which is a case that arose in the Cherokee Reservation, it was a non-Indian defendant in that case who committed a crime against an Indian person in the Cherokee Reservation. The state argued 2 things in Castro Huerta. They asked the court to overturn McGirt, which the court has said it would not do. So the Supreme Court declined to hear any issues that would relate to overturning the case, but they did agree to hear the issue of whether the state had concurrent jurisdiction with the United States over crimes that are committed by non-Indian against an Indian in Indian country. So that specific issue is, they did accept cert on that. So the Oklahoma has filed its brief in that case. The amicus briefs in support of the state have been filed as well. The next step will be for the amicus briefs on the other side of the issue and the defendant's brief to be filed. So that's the process that we're in right now, which is working on the amicus filing for the Cherokee Nation. The other case that was the other big Supreme Court issue that came up just since we last met was in Brackeen. The Brackeen case is a ICWA case. It arose in the 5th Circuit, which is not the circuit that Oklahoma is in, but the circuit that Texas and Louisiana and some other states are in. In that case, originally, the district court, the trial court, federal court, said that he found that ICWA was unconstitutional as a violation of equal protection. That was appealed up to the 5th Circuit, which oversees that federal judge. The 5th Circuit issued this very fractured opinion, which, I mean, there were multiple opinions by multiple judges. They did an en banc hearing, which means there were dozens of judges that heard the case at once, and they all had sort of different opinions. It was very chaotic. But the 5th Circuit decided that it was not unconstitutional, but that it still struck provisions of ICWA because it violated what they call the anti-commandeering law. Every issue in that case was, everyone filed for cert, saying that they didn't like different parts of what the 5th Circuit did, and the court accepted cert on all of those issues. So that case is going to, it's on a longer fuse than Castro Huerta is. Castro Huerta will be heard by the court in April. But the Brackeen case will take a much longer time. It'll be in the court's next term. So briefing will take longer. There'll be a longer time for us to work on that case. So I just wanted you to know that that case is, in some ways, it raises some even more interesting issues than Castro Huerta does. The issue in Castro Huerta is there's no dispute among the circuits or anything about it. But the issue in Brackeen, those are it addresses some really fundamental issues of federal Indian law. So that case is one that is of great concern to the Cherokee Nation. We will also be filing several briefs, or a brief in that case. So that's another issue just to be aware of. it's unusual for the Cherokee Nation to have a single Supreme Court case at any given time. It is incredibly unusual for us to have two at once in this process. So the Cherokee Nation has an additional amount of heavy lifting to do at the AG's office right now on these big ticket Indian country issues. The other thing that has occurred just really recently, just in the last week, was VAWA 22, the Violence Against Women Act, at least Congress has passed a reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act, which is welcome news to everyone in Indian country. I can end on a high note on my report. It is good to see Congress taking action. The president has not signed it yet, but I think there is no doubt in anyone's mind that he will sign it. It has several provisions. I'll just highlight a couple that are particularly interesting, I think, to Cherokee Nation. One of them is the Bureau of Prisons Tribal Prisoner Program is reauthorized here. This was something that was in the Tribal Law and Order Act as a pilot program, and then it disappeared. It sort of timed out, and it has been reinvigorated. This program allows Indian tribes to put tribal inmates into Bureau of Prisons facilities if they have committed a violent crime and have been sentenced to a term longer than 1 year. That is potentially going to be helpful to the tribe. Section 804 has to do with tribal jurisdiction over covered crimes. So we talked before about the fact that a non-Indian who commits a crime against an Indian, now the question before the Supreme Court is, does the state have concurrent jurisdiction? But one thing we know is that the tribes typically do not have jurisdiction over non-Indians who commit crimes against Indians. The only exception to that was created in VAWA 13, which reinstated tribal jurisdiction over non-Indians who commit certain domestic violence crimes against Indians. That has been expanded again in VAWA 22 to restore tribal jurisdiction over non-Indian individuals who commit crimes related to child violence, sexual violence, sex trafficking, stalking, obstruction of justice, and assault of tribal justice personnel in Indian country. So that expands tribal jurisdiction over non-Indians who commit these particular crimes against Indians. This means that once this passes and becomes law, it also makes some other more technical improvements to the law, which I think will make it easier for tribes to exercise that jurisdiction over non-Indians. Roughly 20% of the domestic violence cases that we file today, we file against non-Indians. The federal districts have been sending a lot of those cases our way because of how burdened they are with other crimes. If we can prosecute it, they tend to say, hey, you guys can prosecute this one, why don't you handle it? So we've accepted a lot of those cases already. This will expand that jurisdiction further. So that is good because it gives the tribe more control over individuals who may be committing crimes or causing problems in tribal communities. It also means that it's likely that the tribal case numbers will increase even more because now the feds will have more types of cases that they can say, send that over to Cherokee Nation. This is one that they can now prosecute under the new VAWA. So expect to see legislation coming forward to you to implement these provisions once it's signed by the president, and then expect to see those numbers of cases continue to increase in the tribal courts. And I think that is enough for one day, given the daylight savings time switch and all of that. So I'll be happy to answer any questions that I can.
Does anybody have any questions for Sarah?
Yeah, Ms. Hill, was that true? I seen on the news the other day that the government is going to reimburse the nation for the legal fees on the McGirt.
No one's offered to cover my legal fees yet on any of our McGirt cases. Now, there is a lot of, it's probably the $62 million is probably, yes. So there was a bill passed that would provide $62 million in additional funding to tribes who have these new responsibilities under McGirt. Certainly, any amount of money we get from the United States, we will put to good use immediately. And that was wonderful news to hear. You're right.
Doc?
Sarah, over here.
Oh, there we go. Sorry. I heard your voice, but it was
Can you
disembodied.
comment on the ICW case before the U.S. Supreme Court? Is that ongoing?
Yes, that's the Brackeen case.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I wasn't as clear as I should have been on that. Yeah, that case, the issues that it really is two separate issues at the court. I mean, this is just to give you like a snapshot of it. There's one issue that I think a lot of people are really concerned about, which is they're saying it's a violation of equal protection, that it has to do, that being an Indian has to do with race and not with citizenship. So there are people that say, well, you can't have a law that treats one race different than another race. And it has been the law for decades in the United States that Indian status is not a racial issue, but Indian status has to do with a political status that an individual has. And that's just been the law for a really long time. But there are a lot of people who don't like that, and that's one of the challenges that the court is going to hear. The other one has to do with anti-commandeering, which is under what circumstances can the United States tell the state what to do? And the state is saying, you can't make us provide these extra services to Indian parents. You can't require us to do these things. Now, we can do it as a matter of state law if we want to, but United States, you can't force the states to do that. And that's I'm not getting into all of the details, but that's the broad strokes of what the case is about.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Chair.
EO?
On those municipalities that have not switched over, are they still paying there to the city, to the state, their fines?
So if the municipalities have not entered into agreements, then they can't write those tickets. They have to either give them to us to prosecute them in the tribal court, but they can't do anything with those. They can't issue those tickets at all.
Have we had any just refuse to join?
I mean, there are lots of cities that haven't decided to make the leap yet, but I think that a lot of people just aren't sure about it, or it's hard for them to get consensus about it. I mean, they have the cross steps. We're cross-stepped with them, so they can still write the tickets. But the issue is that the city can't take any of them. All of that money comes directly to Cherokee Nation, and the tickets do as well. It's more burdensome on the individual who gets the ticket, and it's more burdensome on the city because they don't get any of that revenue. I can't explain why some cities haven't. It seems like a pretty good deal to me, like you would be jumping up and down to get that for your community. But there are also, as you all are more well aware than most people, sometimes there are internal politics that get in the way sometimes of those situations. So we continue, any city, any municipality that has a city court, we're happy to talk to them about it.
So is there a deadline to when they got to join?
Nope, the door's open. They just need to let us know that they're ready, and we'll sit down and talk to them about it.
What?
Joe?
Hey, that attorney case with John Harris, was he just misleading his clients, or?
I don't know anything about the facts of that case. All I know is what I saw in the news on it, and it was the first I had heard about it was when I heard that he was had been jailed for that. So I don't know any of the specifics of that.
Yeah, because he got sentenced to 5 days,
Yeah.
but it was an interesting, if you read it, then you know what I'm talking about, the way he was telling his clients.
Yeah, it's a pretty unusual circumstance for attorneys to be jailed by the state court.
And sentenced to 5 days for his contempt.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty unusual circumstance, but I just don't know enough about it to have an opinion that would be worth anything.
I just didn't know if he was trying to use the McGirt in this case to have his clients just not show up or not go, or.
Yeah,
I was really confused with what he was trying to attempt.
Yeah, I am confused by the whole situation. I was just taken aback by it as you were, but I don't know anything about the facts, not a single thing.
All right, thanks, Chair.
Okay. Candace?
Earlier in your remarks, you mentioned a kind of a one-year report, and would you mind sending a link maybe to Jennifer so she could distribute that to us?
Sure.
Because I'm having some problems finding it right now.
It's on the Our Sovereign Land website that we maintain that has all the information about McGirt. We kind of keep updated. But I'll be happy to send the link, and we'll put it on the OAG website as well. I know there were some links to it in the social media event. I mean, they did a little bit of social media over the weekend on it, and there were links to the report periodically in there. But I'll be happy to send that out to the whole tribal council.
Okay, thank you very much, Attorney General. Thank you for the time, Speaker.
Anybody else? I guess I have a question, comment. You know, I know a lot of municipal courts have kind of partnered with the Cherokee Nation, and now they're able to hear those Indian tickets, you know, in their court. And if they pay the fine, then everything can be done there and the money can be sent. But if, you know, if they plead not guilty, then they automatically come to Tahlequah. Is everybody pretty much buying into that? Are they having that kind of court in most of the cities?
Yeah, there's really, I mean, it's a pretty 99% of the tickets, I don't know if it's 99, but a very large percentage of tickets, people just come and plead guilty and pay. That's all they want to do is just plead guilty and pay the ticket. And that seems to be working fine. It's a very quick process. Those tickets get brought to the Cherokee Nation, and we file them, the money stays in the local community. There's just not a lot of people that want to take a ticket to trial in the first place, so I haven't seen any come through. But certainly we stand ready to do that if it becomes an issue. The Cherokee Nation's courts continue to exercise jurisdiction in all of those circumstances. It really is just a situation of accounting at the city level. And we haven't had any issues so far.
Okay. And one other thing, looking at the past year at McGirt and how this has changed our nation and what we have done to adapt to it as far as keeping people safe. I know that was the number one concern whenever this happened. We need to be able to keep our people safe. What's your assessment of the year? I mean, is there still holes in it? I mean, what do you think about this first year? And I know it's been a challenge, and I know there's probably more work to do, but specifically, you think it's working?
I'm actually surprised, and I probably shouldn't have been, because of all the examples that we have of how resilient, Cherokee Nation is, how resilient our employees are. It has been astounding, the level at which we have functioned and how quickly we have functioned at a very high level. The attorneys in my office who are from the moment they get into the office to the moment they leave are working incredibly hard. The courts have had to expand. I would have expected, it has gone far better than I anticipated. And also, it took time, but getting the local police, the city police, the county police to interact with our office, to bring us their cases, to see their growing trust in tribal justice in the Cherokee Nation. I get so many good comments from folks saying, I don't think the state would have prosecuted this case. I'm really glad that you guys have this case. I hear victims come to our office and say, I'm so glad that Cherokee Nation is here. I feel better knowing that you guys have this case. And I'm not saying that we are perfect. We're certainly not. We have plenty of issues that we have left to address. I still need more help. We still have capacity building to do. But I have been, and it is just because of the fantastic people in my office and the people that I've hired who've just jumped in and taken everything really personally. Like, we are going to get this done. We don't care what it takes. The people in my office, I know lawyers get a bad rap, and a lot of them deserve it. The people in my office are outstanding, and the support staff that I have are machines. They are so good. I know we have a lot of work to do, but I have a lot of optimism. I was as concerned, more concerned maybe than anyone was when this started, but that has been replaced by a lot of confidence that we can get this done.
Well, going from virtually a tiny caseload in the, double digits, 60 cases a year to thousands, setting up a court system, seeing hundreds and hundreds of people. I mean, this is a major undertaking in a very short time, and I just want to commend your office and your employees for what they've done, because it's a major undertaking, and the attacks that our nation, the hits that we take from different people, even our governor. And it's kind of funny that, he's against McGirt, and then one of his family members is using McGirt as a defense on a ticket. So, I mean, that's kind of the hypocrisy that goes on. But I just want to say thank you for everything you guys do for the nation. You guys have really worked your butts off, and you are very much appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All right, good report. All right, next for you, GRA, Gwen Terrapin.
Gwen is not here today. She is out of the office, but if there are any questions I need to take back to her, I can do that.
Is there any questions that Sarah could address for Gwen? Okay, that'll work. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Next from the Tax Commission, Sharon Swepson. Is Sharon here?
Morning.
Oh, she's
Yes,
live.
can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I believe you do have my report. I will try to entertain any questions that you might have.
Anybody have any questions for Sharon? Status of the J office, or is it full capacity now?
Well, it was. We had our new employee transferred to another department, so that job is back open again, and I'm so sorry. And we're trying to get it filled again, so.
Okay. Anybody else? Joe?
Hey Sharon, I got a question on tags. You know, we talk about the Cherokee tags not being able to be tracked by the state. On the Turnpike Authority, a lot of people are being told that you don't need a pike pass because they can't track it. Is
They
that,
can track it.
they can track it?
They can track it, yes, sir.
Okay.
Our data goes into the Oklahoma, it's called OLETS, but it goes into that system every morning. So yes, it can be tracked, and I have verified with the Turnpike Authority, and they can track those tags. So yes, you do need a pike pass, or you will be billed.
Guess I'll wait for my bill. I was just clarifying that, for certain people.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll mention names.
And that is something that law enforcement was worried about, whenever you
Yeah.
make a traffic stop running a tag. And yeah, you can call up and they can run that tag for you so you know who, and it's a big safety deal too, so yeah, they
Yeah,
can
they were-
definitely do that.
Yeah, they were asking about the, what do you call it, I guess the crossover between the tribe and the state.
Right.
Tags.
Yeah.
And also, did you get any signs or ordered any signs for the Catoosa Tag Agency? So we
Yes,
don't
we're
have,
working on getting signs out there. Yes.
think we can just get a yard sale sign, put it out there? Because there's a ton of people over there already, every day that
I know.
think that's the tag since O'Donnell got indicted.
Yeah, we got the big signs up on the doors, so they should see it before they ever walk in the door that this is Cherokee Nation. Plus, whenever they go to log in, it also says Cherokee Nation Tag Office, but we are working on getting a sign to put up out at the driveway entrance.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else? And things going good with the Catoosa office? I know that, that was a quick deal, and you guys once again, did a good job of adapting. How's it going over there?
It's going good. I have to give credit to the staff. They jumped in with both feet and got it done in a hurry, and it's working well. We don't seem to be having any issues there. We're just looking forward to getting moved into our new office this spring, so.
Well, that's great. Well, Sharon, you do a good job, and we're fortunate in the Cherokee Nation that we have people, when things happen like this, that we can adapt and we can continue service to our people. Whether it's a pandemic, whether this getting kicked out of a building and having to do our own thing, you guys have shown good resolve in always keeping our people first. Just want to thank you.
Well, thank you.
All right.
Appreciate that. I have to give credit, like I said, to my staff and other departments. Everybody jumped in and worked as a team, and we got it done, and that's what it takes.
All right, good report, Sharon. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, from the Gaming Commission, Janice Purcell. And Janice is here.
Good morning. I submitted my report. Does anyone have any questions?
Does anybody have any questions for Janice? All right, Janice, you got off easy. I see none. You have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, and from Human Resources, Samantha Hendricks, sir. Yes, she is.
Hi, good morning. Good to see everyone. I always like to stay in a positive note here. So have a few things to share with you. We are, for the first time, every time I've come here, I've talked about streamlining processes. What can we do to get more new hires on? And today, I'll be happy to report that we have 2 orientations today. We normally just have enough employees for 1, but we actually have 2, so we are making a difference. And so I'm very excited to say, gosh, we've got more in orientation. So also, we are looking at a text to apply. That's something we're looking to do for our Cherokee citizens and others that applied for that. So things are changing, and we're definitely looking for successes. The other thing is that our learning management system, we went live with that a month. Now it's been a month and a half ago. And we did do a domestic violence training, and we are setting at 75% as completion. So very excited about that, because employees are actually it's an easy system for them to learn and be able to navigate in it. So other than that, you have my report. If you have any questions in relation to the report, I'll be happy to answer those.
Does anybody have any questions for Samantha?
Okay.
All right, good report. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, under old business, none pending. Is there any new business? Yes, ma'am.
I would like to ask to amend the agenda to add an item that has been passed out. This is regarding the resolution authorizing the principal chief to submit certain grant applications and execute certain grant awards. I'd like to add that to the new business.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries. That will be item number 7.
7, okay.
Yes. All right, item number 1. Rex, would you take that, please?
Yes, this is a resolution confirming the reappointment of Marie Elizabeth Blue as the 5th member of the Cherokee Nation Election Commission. I put that in the form of a motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? All right, number 2, Wes.
This is a resolution demonstrating support for United States Senate Bill 1265, the Fourth Amendment is Not for Sale Act. I've talked to a handful of the counselors today, and it just hasn't grown legs yet, so I'd like to make a motion to table that.
I have a motion to table. Do I have a second? All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed? All right, motion carries. Number 3, Johnny, would you take that, please?
This is a legislative act amending Title 18, Article 3, Section 18 of the Cherokee Nation General Corporation Act, expanding the access for Cherokee Nation citizens to the Cherokee Nation Health Services Hearing Aid Program, providing for severability and declaring an emergency. I put this forward in form of motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Wes?
Yeah, the question I had on it when looking over it, I think it's a good thing for expansion. However, I did get with another counselor here that was sponsoring the bill. It seems to be that we may need to look at also rewriting how this law is written. It's not clear in the congruity of how the law of Title 18 is. I think that's something we need to take a look at, possibly maybe by the passage of the full council to amend that whole entire section. So it's the comment that I had on it. Appreciate it.
Julia?
Thank you. I wanted to commend Councilor Kidwell for his work on this. I knew from years ago when this was first passed that only one hearing aid was being offered, and I knew there was some reason for it, and I couldn't recall what it was. And I had the opportunity to speak with our former Councilor Jack Baker yesterday about it, and he said it was just a reluctance on the part of the council in 2007, 2008 to make many expenditures on services to at-large people. And so I want to commend Councilor Kidwell for going forward with this. I want to commend the administration and the departments that have implemented this as well. And I'm glad to see that our nation is at a place where we can offer a second hearing aid, which seems sort of ridiculous, but very wonderful as well. I'd like to be added as a sponsor, please, with Councilor Kidwell's invitation to do that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Johnny?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to speak real quickly to about the rewriting of the law. And we might need Attorney Young to speak to this a little bit as well. I think what's happened is this bill is adding on to onto the hearing or to the eyeglasses bill, which this council passed a few years back. And the issue that we're running into is that bill from a few years back has not yet been codified into Title 18, has not been placed in. So we are, it would appear that we're kind of putting the cart before the horse. I mean, it doesn't mean that this bill can't pass and have legs, but codification of many of the acts that have been passed by this council over the past few years are not yet codified, and we may need Attorney Young to kind of speak to that and what that process would entail, not just for this one, but for many of the acts that are out there.
Okay. John, do you have a comment on that?
I'm told that Elizabeth Odell, the Health's General Counsel, is available via WebEx, and she can explain a little bit of the specifics. I think she'd be better suited to unpack this than I would. Then she should be on here ready.
Ma'am?
I'm here. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get it unmuted.
Okay.
I don't have any comment on codification. I can say that this was added to the previous one, and there shouldn't be an issue with that, but I don't know where we are in codification.
Who would know that?
If John doesn't, I don't know who would, because it's a,
With respect to codification, Counselor Kidwell's reached out to me to see what the status is. It does seem like there's been a lag that we've been looking at addressing. Codification is ongoing, but I think there were some setbacks with COVID, but that being said, we are looking into getting it up to speed. I don't know if codification, though, would necessarily change the substance of this legislative act. I mean, if the previous legislative act was amended, and that's what we have here, that's what our law requires we have, not necessarily codification itself. Codification deals with the access and, putting them in a code format. The substance of the law, though, is in the legislative act.
John, do you have any further?
I do not. I just wanted to make sure that we understand the point of, we are a little bit behind on many of those. And if it might be something for discussion at another time in a different venue of getting assistance where assistance is needed to be able to catch up on those things.
So if either one of you, at-large councilman, how many people are we talking this could affect? I mean, let's say in a year, do we know how many hearing aids they're applied for, or how many people this could affect?
From when we first started looking, and Councilor Dobbins might have a little bit of input on this as well, but when we first started looking into this, the numbers were at about at a dollar value of less than $15,000 a year, which is why in this act that we have here, it does not increase any funding stream for us. This is basically marrying it to the eyeglasses program because there was enough funding in that program to handle both at the same time. Whenever I first got the numbers, we were looking at less than 25 a year.
And I think that's an important fact to know, that if that was a concern, I mean, obviously it's not. Danny?
Yes, sir. What I was wondering, and I know how contract health is, if you go to the northern end of the reservation, everything goes through IHS. So being a gentleman that had went over there to get a hearing aid, going through Claremore, they would only give me one. Now, this was a couple of years ago, and that's, to go through the appeal process, if every Cherokee is going to get two, which if they get it at the southern end of the reservation, it needs to be fair with both ends of the reservation. And I don't know if this handles, this law particularly handles what we're doing here, but that's exactly why I'm sponsoring this and going through this, because, it's almost like a double standard. You go over there, you could buy your other one, but you get one but not the other. So that was the point I was making with making sure that the bill did get through and it didn't lag behind.
Dr. Jones, you want to address that?
Yeah, let me explain this a little bit. And the numbers, we looked at in the beginning around 25,000. Actually, when we did the deep dive, it's somewhere between $85,000 and $90,000 impact to our program. But again, we feel like we can absorb that within the program. As far as the issue with IHS versus Cherokee Nation, that is part of the issue that we're addressing here. Is in the past, if you go to an IHS facility, you got one hearing aid, and that was because anybody that was a beneficiary, not specifically to Cherokee, but anyone, got one. But if you came through Cherokee Nation, you lived within the boundaries of the reservation, then you got two hearing aids if you were Cherokee. So what this does is it opens it up to all Cherokees that come through our program, not through Claremore, but through our program, through Cherokee Nation, will be eligible for two hearing aids rather than one. So, and it is a Cherokee-only program. So if that helps to understand. So just because you live in the northern counties, You do not have to go through Claremore. This is a direct service program, so you can come directly to our facilities and go through our audiology program, and then you'll receive the 2 hearing aids if you qualify and if there's a need for that. Does that help to explain it?
Danny?
Dr. Jones, if you do get referred down here, are you months, weeks, years out of being able to be seen, or with the influx of people coming down?
Well, we haven't seen the influx yet because this legislation is just passing, but currently we've tripled the size of our audiology program. We've gone from 1 to 3 audiologists. We've got triple the amount of sound rooms available. To my knowledge right now, we are maybe have a small waiting list, but we're pretty much up to date. And of course, children get priority because we do have referrals in from schools, and the children get priority to get them back into a learning environment as quickly as possible. So there is a little bit of you may have a little bit of a slowdown there, but it has to do with but typically getting the children the priority of getting in ahead of everyone else.
Any other comments? Joe?
Well, sort of both ways. Johnny, great deal. We talked about this a while back, and I know you worked on this, and I applaud that. That's a great thing. I mean, the one, because, and on the other side, Jones, it talks about, you hear people, with programs, do you revamp these programs or look at them every year? Is that what goes on? Do you have a team that looks at that?
We do look at service lines continually. So and we let data drive those decisions. So we are constantly looking at improvements and where we can improve. Change doesn't happen fast, of course, and it requires, some of these service lines, as we revamp them, require additional staffing.
Right.
But we are constantly looking at ways we can improve our service lines and add service lines. One of the things Chief has given a directive to me when he took office was he wants to improve access, open up access in all of our healthcare programs. So we work on that continually.
Because what I was thinking of what we talked about earlier about optometry, and now we have this, and then other constituents talked about dentures as well and different things. What I don't want to get into is, we talk about guidelines and selective things here and there, is maybe it's time for us to start moving that voucher amount up for certain things to cover, because prices have gone up and different things, and maybe make a legislative act where a lot of our constituents, because looking around, everybody has a concern in their district. It seems like, they're having to do something different. It might be time that we look at the funding. We're funding all kinds of stuff. We have buildings, everything going. We're in a good place right now as a tribe. And I think if we can do better with services and make those costs a lot less all the way around with optometry and not have to give them 1 versus 2, Danny needs 2. I know that because he's deaf. But, that way going forward, I'm just saying that's what I think we need to look at as a whole when we talk about these services, whether it's dentures, hearing aids, optometry, dental, these things. So maybe some of the citizens are not out of pocket, because of those guidelines. So if we can start looking at that, that would be great. So, but yes, Kidwell, Counselor, that's a great thing. I appreciate it. So, Odo.
Victoria?
Yes. I wanted to clarify, when you talk about at-large, could a person that lives, say, in Missouri or even farther away, if they can come to one of our facilities, they can still get the hearing aids?
Absolutely. They just have to come through it has to be through direct care. It can't be through contract health or anything of that nature. It has to come through direct care, be seen by our audiologist, and then made that determination, and then they will order them and get them fitted.
Thank you. Follow-up question to that. How long normally does it take from the time they first see the audiologist to actually getting the hearing aids?
I'll get you that answer by Health Committee. I don't know the exact time frame on that, but I can get you that answer by Health Committee today. Okay?
Thank you. And I would like to be added as a sponsor to this. Shelley, thank you.
Wes? Okay. Anybody else?
Hi.
Yes, Keith.
Yes. I want to compliment our team on getting our people taken care of. A few years ago, it was very common for people to be waiting 2 years to be seen by an audiologist. And to hear that we, just in a very short time, we've taken that from 2 years to basically down to no substantial waiting list. That's a celebration. We should be celebrating the fact that we're in a position where we now can open it up to our at-large citizens.
Thank you, sir.
Good comments, and I agree. We're in a good place right now in the Cherokee Nation, and it's good that we have people who are being proactive and knowing what their constituents need. I mean, it's everybody has, voices, concerns, and everybody has different concerns in their districts. But, I would like to be added to as a sponsor too. I think it's a great thing. It's a long time coming, and I'm thankful that as a Cherokee Nation, we are able to do this now. We're at a place where we can. Sean? Yeah. Is everybody? Let's do that. All right, Keith, got you too. All right, anything further? Dr. Jones, thank you for the clarification. All right, we've had discussion. We've had a motion and a second. So all in favor? All opposed? All right, passes. Good job, Johnny. All right, number 4, Doc.
Okay. Speaker, with your permission, I'd like to provide at least a little bit of context before I read this act. This act was actually a part of the comprehensive election reform that this body passed in October of 2020. The majority of us in here served on that work group, and that was part of that election reform, which passed in October of 2020 by a vote of 16-1, and then was signed by the chief, so it was codified. So I don't quite know why we are revisiting this, so I'm going to defer to our author, John Young, and he can basically explain why we are revisiting this particular part of our election code. Or do you want me to make the motion first?
Yes, we'll have a motion to vote first.
Okay. You want?
Well, I'll need a motion. Read it, we'll get a motion, and we'll get a second.
Okay. This is an act amending Legislative Act 24-20, setting a final date for the acceptance of absentee ballots by personal delivery to the Cherokee Nation Election Commission. I move for its approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Now discussion. John?
As Councilor Dobbins previously stated, the substance of this was passed by this council back in October of 2020. It got a little confusing, and then when I came on here, this was something we took a few months to unpack. We met with the Election Commission more than once. But it was determined that subsequent legislation passed around the same time changed this back to what it had been before the 2020 Act changed it. So here we are coming back and saying that the intent was not to change it with that second that went through, that second legislative act. So this is sort of a belt and suspenders measure to say that it was not supposed to change from the original back in 2020. And I will tell you, this has been a really confusing one to unpack. So that's why we're here.
Who makes the determination that there was other law or there was another resolution that superseded this one to change this when this council voted for this to happen in the last election and it didn't? Who makes that decision?
It was an interpretation by the Election Commission with the order that this was passed and the one that came right after it. They were interpreted as setting one thing, the second one changed it back, and they went with the last in time that they have, which is the standard interpretation. So, and it did have the effect of changing it as far as they were concerned.
So we're talking about the attorneys or the Election Commission themselves, do you know?
I'm not real sure on that. I hate to venture a guess.
Okay. Julia?
I believe from the meetings that we had, that was the attorney for the Election Commission who made that determination. Is that your recollection as well, Dr. Dobbins?
Julia, this has happened over about, 18 months, and I couldn't quite say for sure to pinpoint who pulled the trigger on it.
Councilor Teehee, you were at that meeting as well. Do you recall that was Mr. Chafin, the attorney's determination that
according to Robert's Rules of Order, I thought we weren't supposed to address each other directly.
Yeah,
But
we break that all the
my
time.
my recollection of
We do.
yeah,
I've
my
given
my
up.
recollection of that is that it was an election commission decision. Whether it was specifically, originating from the attorney or the election commissioners themselves, I couldn't speak to that.
I'll just say that's my recollection, and I'm just trying to establish it in the record. I'm not making any criticism or anything by that, it's neither here nor there. The other point I wanted to make about this, however, is that what this sort of reinserts back into the law is part of the overall package of reform that was passed by the council. This was not a separate standalone act, right? So this was passed unanimously by the council at that time as part of the overall package of reform. And so I just wanted to make that point. This is, something that at that time that absolutely every single person on this body, I believe, that was there at that time, at least. I know we've got some new counselors since then, but it was unanimously passed, I believe. Thank you.
Danny?
Oh, I'd like to be added as a sponsor, please, too, if possible.
Danny?
Thank you.
As being a new counselor and going through, statistically speaking, each one of us has approximately 27,000 voters in our district. In my district, about 2,700 of them are registered, and only 809 voted in the election, so that's about a little under 30%, 29.6. So if we have to re-vote it, being a new counselor, the problem I have is limiting people's ability to vote and when they get to vote and telling them, if you're going to vote, you better get it turned in before this date. Now, when we pick them up ourselves and put them in there, yeah, if you put in 200, at 7 o'clock on Saturday evening, I see where that's an issue. But having people that can't get to put their ballot in for either medical reasons or they can't get there, I mean, we need to encourage people to be voting on the Cherokee Nation. We need bigger outcomes and bigger things. And I'm a new voice here and I'm a pup, so you guys have been through the battles a lot longer than I have. But the point is, I think people need to be able to vote. I think that's important, and I don't, whether it's for my benefit or for my opponent's benefit, it doesn't really matter. They still need to be able to vote.
Anybody else? Wes?
Yeah, this was a big issue watching it come forward, that this council had did a great deal amount of work putting forward a comprehensive change to our election, and then watch it be undermined by the election commission. I thought we were the ones that vested the powers. And so I think I'm glad to see Councilor Dobbins bring this back up. I would like to be added to a sponsor. And I think that these kinds of changes that we they need to be enforced, and they need to be held accountable whenever you have a body like the Election Commission trying to undo our work. And I think that's the reason why we have such a low voter turnout, is because the voters don't have confidence whenever something like this happens. I mean, we were midway in an election cycle when they were changing the rules of when you could vote. They were changing which law they wanted to follow. Sometimes they were following one law, then they were following another law. And so when you have a 800 voter turnout in a citizen district of 23,000, that's 3%. That is nowhere incomparable to a voter participation. I was having trouble with that word earlier this morning, that we need to see. And I think that constantly trying to strengthen some requirements and some accountability of our voting process is really, really important. So I appreciate you bringing this back up, Councilor Dobbins.
Candace?
I definitely agree with some points that have been made and disagree strongly with others. I would absolutely contradict some statements that were recently made about the Election Commission and the integrity of the Election Commission. Those are some individuals who do some very difficult work, and I find their work to be above reproach. Councilor Callison made the statement that he is in favor of trying to make voting as accessible as possible to the citizens of Cherokee Nation, and I absolutely stand behind that as well. I feel that this is a restriction on voter access, and in actuality, by removing the ability of individual citizens to make personal delivery to the Election Commission, then you're actually taking away an avenue that, well, really the only avenue for personal delivery that has any record keeping associated with it. When personal delivery of ballots are made to the Election Commission, people have to sign in. They have to say how many ballots they're dropping off and whose ballots they're dropping off. That doesn't happen when an individual takes, a large number of ballots to the post office and dumps them there. So I think in actuality, in counter to one of the points that was made here, this is not actually increased oversight. I would argue this is decreasing oversight while restricting voter access, and it is not something I can support. Thank you for the time, Speaker.
Anybody else? Victoria?
Yes, thank you. This question is for John Young. Does setting an earlier deadline for some voters create any constitutional or legal issue?
It's been said that it creates an equal protection issue, that you're restricting one class of voters, the ability to write separate from others. I don't know that's ever been tested, but I've heard it said throughout this process. I take no personal position on that because my name's affixed to this, but yes.
Anybody else? Joe Dia.
I've thought about this, and, I was actually in those meetings, we talked about that, and I agree with Callison and Teehee and a lot of these guys. I mean, we don't want to restrict any voter, as low as the turnout is. We have, 400,000 citizens now? And only a couple vote or get out and vote, and I don't know what the reason is, but I think if we open it up, I get your point, Dobbins. We always agree and disagree. That's why we're here. But I think, I don't want to restrict them. So I'm going to have to vote no on this because I want to see more people get involved in Cherokee Nation. A lot of people have watched me over the years, and my biggest deal is create community. And if we start restricting folks, we've already been through the Friedman case. We went through all these other things. That's where I stand on it. So restricting equal, if we want equal, then we got to give them equal. Don't restrict them. So I'm going to have to be a no on that today. But I do respect everybody's opinion because that's why we're here. So thank you.
Anybody else? EO?
Just real quick, the election don't get on everybody's mind until the last week. So with our terrible mail service that we have, I hate to see so many of them get knocked out because they were one day too late. So I'll be in favor of giving them as long as I can to make a vote. So I'll be voting no. Thank you.
Johnny?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to say also, that I'm conflicted because, those of us who are new to the council, the changes that occurred back in 2020 and that everybody put forward, and I don't want to diminish all the hard work that they did. I know that's difficult to get things through. When this came up, and I believe it might have been November that we first talked about this, or maybe before. But the issue was, why didn't supposedly the election commission didn't follow the law that the committee had put forward. And even at that time, I said, my position was that, you need to put teeth in the bill that you have, because if you bring this back up for vote, you have a new council, and it may post differently than what it once did. Because as a general rule, I would like to see greater access for people, much like what many of the counselors have said here today, and I don't want to limit that at all. But I will say that it puts a few of us that are new to the council in the precarious situation of having to undo possibly something that a council before had done, which by all intents and purposes, it seems like we shouldn't be revisiting something, but we are. So, I will be voting no, mainly because I want to see more access for people to be able to vote. And I don't understand what happened beforehand and why this change was even, what was even talked about. And that's the odd position that it puts us all in. So, if we're going to put it back up for a vote, I'll be voting no, but I want to say that I respect and I understand the hard work that it went in to do this, and I am conflicted. I am. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Anybody else? Doc?
I would question whether this impairs voter access. Our voters, if they vote by absentee, they receive their ballots, 5 weeks, 6 weeks before the election. So they have that time to vote. And so I guess I'm hearing arguments, well, that individual that wants to wait till Saturday, they should have the ability to walk it over to the election commission and vote. Now, they can't, even with this legislation, they can walk to the post office and drop off their, if they wait till Saturday or Friday. And I didn't know this, I guess at the post office, our election commission has a drop box there. So if our voters go to vote on Friday or Saturday, they don't put it in the mail. Of course, as all of you know, you need at least 2 days. If you drop it in the mail on Thursday, it may not even get to the election commission on Saturday. But they have a box there that the voters can drop it in the box, and then the election commission goes and picks them up. So I guess in essence, our post office kind of acts as a precinct the last couple of days of our election. So I don't necessarily agree at all with this somehow limits voter access. Man, we have very open absentee voting. We can hand deliver the state. You must mail it. It has to be notarized. Now we can notarize or have witnesses. And we allow ballots to be walked in. So, man, we have a pretty open process where our constituents have the ability to vote. So I would dispute somewhat the argument that it somehow impairs voter access. Thank you, Chair.
Victoria?
Yes, there's a follow-up. I would like to also get an opinion from our Attorney General on the question I asked of Mr. Young about if this creates any legal or constitutional issue with certain voters.
Sarah, come up and address that, please.
I'll confess I was only half listening, but I think I understand the question was about the constitutionality of the provision, or if there were legal concerns about this provision. You know, I think the only concern that it raises to me is whether or not, I think exactly what Mr. Young said was if you have two different voters or absentee voters, but if you put the absentee ballot in the mail, then it gets counted on a certain date. If you bring it to them by a certain date, it's not counted. There's different dates for different voters who are using different mechanisms to get their vote. I don't know that that's an issue. I haven't looked at the law, so I can't specifically address that. But I understand the issue that has been raised about it. I'd have to have time to look at it into more detail to give you a more thorough answer about that.
Thank you.
Julia?
Yeah, thanks. I'll just make 2 points real quickly here. The first is that I recall, and others who served on the Election Reform Committee work group will also recall that a good deal of the discussion was about convenience for the Election Commission themselves, that this was something that they had actually indicated might be helpful to them, right, but to not have just hundreds of absentee ballots dumped on them at 7 o'clock on Saturday evening, and that made it difficult for them. It delayed counts and so forth. And the discussion really was about the dumping of boxes of ballots at the last minute. It wasn't about an individual person walking in at the last minute and submitting a ballot, because the reality is that didn't really seem to happen that much. It was candidates and campaigns coming in with box loads of ballots at the last minute that was really the impetus for this particular part of the law. And I think we need to get back to understanding, why that discussion originated. Because a lot of the discussion has been about individual voters, and I don't think that's, that those were the people that, the individual walking in with a ballot is not really what this was attempting to address. Yeah. Thank you.
Danny?
Yes, I do recognize the work that was put in on this, and I wasn't there at the time. If I'm not mistaken, maybe you guys can help me out here, but if you get an absentee ballot and you don't mail it, and you go in to vote on Saturday, is your vote not considered to be in?
Challenge.
What's the word they use?
Challenge.
In a challenge, and they don't even count it unless the race is close.
That's
Yeah,
That's not true.
so it's counted right there at the point.
No, all challenge ballots are looked at and to see the validity if they are good ballots or not. And if it's found to be a good ballot, then challenge ballots are accepted, meaning if you can't vote by absentee and then go try to vote at a precinct
Right.
and do a challenge ballot, it's one or the other.
Right.
So, and if it's a good ballot, it's counted.
Okay, that was a question, because, a lot of people have those questions. We talked about the mailbox. One thing we have to do, we have to educate people. I mean, people don't, I had no idea. If we're talking about a post office in Strang, Oklahoma, if they have a ballot box for those people to vote, or if it's even open on Saturday, and that's the only way they have to get there. So, I mean, if that is an issue, I knew nothing about it and was never told that, and that's a good deal. But the point is, if we're going to do these things, we have to educate these people to where they know exactly how and where to go. And I think we fall behind when we come to the education part of what we're supposed to do.
Candace?
I too appreciate all of the hard work that was put in by previous council. The statement was made that this was not something that was about individual citizens. Unfortunately, it is something that will impact individual citizens. If the goal is to kind of stop specific actions that were mentioned, that's not mentioned anywhere in this particular legislation, but it will have an impact on individual citizens. And I think that's something that we have to keep in mind is that big picture as well. So if the goal is to, it sounds like what's on the page here is a bit different than the stated goal that people are referencing. And I just wanted to further iterate that this will have an impact on individual citizens, even if that was not the spirit of the legislation.
Wes?
Yes, I just wanted to clarify, obviously, a lot of the new counselors' questions, and one of the previous counselors' questions about the limiting voter ability to vote in this process. To kind of break it down simply is that if I had an absentee, which I have 4 to 5 weeks to return, if I can't return it for 2 more days now because this law was passed, and I go to the election commission where I thought I used to could turn it in on Saturday by 7 p.m., and I go down there and I say, here, I want to turn this in, and they say, no, the law says we can't accept it. I could then either drive 2 more miles into Tahlequah, and I could drop it off at that drop box. Or, because I'm in Tahlequah, that's the only place that this is being discussed. It's not talking about precincts. Or I then go to the precinct nearest by, and I walk in and say, I want to do a challenge ballot. Then you do the challenge ballot, and then you vote. So it doesn't, in any shape or form, take away your ability to vote at all. And that's something that, when you talk about being more, educate our citizens more, that's the election that's the Election Commission's responsibility, is to inform citizens' voting process. And so if they come to the Election Commission on voting day wanting to vote, then the Election Commission just needs to say, here's your options. And hey, I can go do that. Anybody that can actually drive to the Election Commission can drive down there and turn their voter in at the post office, or they can go over here to to Sequoia, which is always open, and they can vote there and do a challenge ballot. So I think that restricting voter ability is in no way, shape, or form even in question here. So appreciate it.
Candace?
To clarify, the only voters who can vote a challenge ballot at the Tahlequah Sequoia location are District 2 voters. So if an individual were to have driven from Tulsa to drop off their absentee ballot at the Election Commission and were refused, and it's afternoon on Saturday, that individual has no way to submit their actual vote because, to my knowledge, at-large voters have no place to vote challenge ballots. The only place a challenge ballot can be voted is by a person in that actual district at that actual precinct. So unless they're a District 2 voter, routing them up to Tahlequah Sequoia isn't really going to do anything for that person.
Johnny?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was going to reiterate there what was already said, that every district's a little bit different, and every district has different voting locations and different precincts and those things. So, and I understand the ballot dumping provision of this, or the idea that went behind it. I would offer that, if we outlaw, if we move this thing, back a week, if they're gonna dump ballots, they're gonna dump ballots. We're not preventing anyone from doing that by this legislation. We're just moving the day of which they will do it. I disagree with ballot dumping. I think all of us do. But I think that if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Pick your day. If not this day, then some other day. And I will also offer that if we disenfranchise one voter, by this and by not allowing them to vote as simply and easily as possible, then it's wrong. And in my eyes, just one. It's all that it takes. Back to you, Mr. Speaker.
Wes?
Follow back up on the challenge ballot locations. That's not in the law, nor is that expressed that you cannot go and challenge ballot at any precinct. That you can do, that is actually something that the Election Commission is not telling their precinct workers the law, which is they have to accept a challenge ballot, no matter, you don't even have to be a registered Cherokee citizen, so to speak, if you want to file a challenge ballot. The law says the precinct must accept the challenge ballot. It does not get casted until it goes back to the Election Commission. When the votes are then counted, that challenge ballots then get open. Most likely they've been happening on Sunday. Then that's the process. The challenge ballot gets open. They look at it, verify it's a registered voter, verify what precinct they would be voting in, and making sure that the vote that they counted was in the precinct they're registered to vote in. So they still have that option to vote that way there. So they just wanted to clarify that up on the challenge ballot location process. And I think that we also, on the drop box thing, the reason why it would limit the ability to do a drop is the post office box does close at 2 p.m. So if you are one of those people that show up after 2 p.m. with absentee ballot, you didn't go do a challenge ballot. But it would prevent a 6:30 drop of my district. If I was running in my district, which I know from experience, the people that drop at 6:30, 200 absentee ballots at the election precinct. And I think it was just really to try to clear that all up. A lot of citizens had questions about knowing how many people have voted, the theory, and that's what's the best way to call it, to try to ease voter conspiracy theory, that if a citizen who knows the system, and let's put it out there, who's running for office wanted to somehow magically put in more votes in an absentee process, that they're trying to do that after or right about the time the polls are closing. So this kind of very limits that, and then it doesn't limit the ability for voters to still be able to vote by absentee that day. So appreciate it.
Julia?
I just wanted to clarify one point for people who may be listening or watching this later on. If you are an at-large voter, you cannot drop your absentee ballot at an in-district precinct and expect for it to be counted. So I just wanted to clarify that. I think if you're in district, you can do that, but just for at-large voters, be careful. You can't do that. Yeah, thanks.
Anybody else? Okay, I'll try to be brief. I was not part of that committee. I did get to sit on the committee because Councilman Duncan let me go in, and I happened to be there the day this was brought up. It seems like throughout the history of our elections, conspiracy theories have always been that, you know, this giant bag of ballots has shown up in the last, as the sun's getting ready to set, and so-and-so was winning, you know, by 200, and then 500 ballots come in, and that changes in the snap of a finger. So whenever you talk about transparency of an election, I think this is part of why this was brought in the first place, the transparency of it all. In state elections, going back to constitutionality of things, I'm sure if this was unconstitutional, the states would have been sued, because this is the way it's been in state elections forever. And the reason why it is done that way is when that voting is ended on a Thursday, then that Saturday, when that election is over, what's posted on that window, you know, we all run up there to go see those results, but what's posted on that window is early voting and absentees. So before the popular vote is even counted, you see how many absentee ballots have been turned in, you see how many have voted early, and the totals are right there for everybody to see. And I think that was done for part of the transparency of it, to say, hey, look, you know, we know going into this last part of this election, this is how many votes are cast. So there's a lot of different reasons, I think, why this was done. But whenever, you know, this committee sat and tried to address all of these questions that have been brought up over and over, this is what they came up with as solutions. And as far as voter suppression, I have to disagree, because I think everything has to have rules. I mean, there has to be rules when we do things. And to say that somebody couldn't have came in those 3 months prior to vote or whatever, and they chose to do it the last day, that's fine if you choose to do it. But if you know that you have to get it done by Thursday, get it done by Thursday, or go to your precinct and vote, or do a challenge ballot. I mean, it's as simple as that. But even the Election Commission, when they were asked, would this benefit you if it was moved to Thursday? Because our elections sometimes don't end a Sunday or Monday. On a Saturday election, we have 2 days to count all these ballots that come in at the last second. Well, if they come in Thursday, then they are able to count those ballots. And they said, yes, it would make it easier on us. So I think a lot of it was about how do we make our elections easier. I don't agree that it would hinder voting at all. People just need to get educated and vote when they're supposed to. And people procrastinate, but you know as well as I do, whenever you go do absentees, there's people who they're not going to vote any other way. They won't. But they will vote an absentee. So, you know, and I've thought myself, you know, I'll probably vote absentee here in the future just in case something happens, you know, and to me or to my family, and I'm not able to vote. So I'm going to support this. I know there was a lot of work put into it, and I know the people who have come in have expressed concerns about voter suppression. Personally, I don't think it is. I think everybody on every side is given the same opportunity, whether you choose to come in or not, but it does make it easier on our election commission. It does make it more transparent. They can see, people can't come and say, hey, you know, my guy was winning until Sunday or Monday, and they turned all these election or absentee ballots in, and we got beat. I mean, there's no easy solution for these things. There's not. but there has to be some give and take too. I think like I said, there's nothing perfect about it. There's just not. So I thought this was a fair way. I thought it was a transparent way to make it easier on our election commission. That's why I'm going to support it. But, I do like the dialogue that we've had today. I mean, a lot of good points. Some people see it one way and others see it the other way. I respect all your opinions, but I'll be voting for it. Keith?
Yes, with you, Speaker, I cherish the fact that this has caused this much debate. I think it's wonderful that this council cares this much about this issue and about making sure our people have the ability to vote. Pardon my voice, I've got a very weak voice today. So a couple of points of misinformation that I just want to make sure that we aren't spreading misinformation to our voters and our constituents. The only post office where there's going to be a box to drop your ballots is Tahlequah. The post office is a big word. That means the entire United States. The only post office branch that is going to have that is going to be Tahlequah. The other is currently, if you stepped into any precinct to vote, and they're not going to have the ballot for your district. So you can't vote for a council person who's not in your district, and you can't vote for, so that's for practical purposes, they're not going to have the ballots, regardless if you stepped in there and for practical purposes, they're not going to have the ballot that you're needing to vote if you stepped into a precinct that's not your precinct. And then I still stand in support of this. I personally have been accused of creating ballots in the middle of the night in order to change the results of an election, because of the conspiracy theorists out there who like to use that, and they will use it. Believe me, they will come and try to convince the like-minded people that elections are being stolen because these ballots, the absentee ballots, are being counted last. The absentee ballots are going to be counted last under this scenario, under the previous scenario, because they are more labor intensive. If you've ever really pay attention there, it's a very labor intensive process to count the ballots for the absentee ballots. And so it's going to take many more hours to count those ballots, and those end up getting reported that late that night or even the next day. I don't want anybody to ever go through being accused of stealing elections when it's unjust. So this was put there in order to try to give us the tools to help that from happening. And in our previous council, it was 16-1. This was not a very contentious issue at that moment, with 16-1 agreeing the fact that this was the case. Now, I respect the fact that the new council can go the other direction, and I will respect it if they do. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Keith. Anybody else? Darrell?
Yes, sir. For clarification, this legislation will make Thursday the cutoff. Is that correct?
For in-person absentee drop-offs only. This creates the, I'm sorry?
Hold on. Go ahead, John. Go ahead.
Yeah.
For in-person absentee drop-offs at the election commission.
Not by mail?
Not by mail, they still have to be received. I think that's
Postmark.
postmarked, I'm sorry, a little bit lower on the act there itself, and but it doesn't
So
change.
like if someone from California mailed it on Tuesday, it didn't get there on Thursday, but it got there on Friday, would it count?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Anybody? EO?
I just want to say, because I know it's happened to me, but if you're in Sequoyah County and you mail a letter on Saturday afternoon, it will not get to Tahlequah on Thursday. I know that for a fact. So I'm just afraid that we'll be shooting a few of them that voted early, but still, because of our poor mail service, you can't get them. can't get 40 miles in 5 days. Thank you.
Julia?
Yeah, just for clarification, it doesn't have to be received by mail by Thursday. If it's mailed in, they have until Saturday to receive it, until Election Day, so, yeah,
As long as it's postmarked.
as long as it's postmarked.
Anybody else? Doc?
No, you said postmarked, that's not true. It has to arrive, it cannot be postmarked on Saturday. It has to arrive in the Tahlequah post office by that Saturday.
Okay. Anybody else? And one other thing that needs to be addressed, and it partly has to do with this too, is during my first election, going for that Saturday deadline, you had till midnight to email or fax your whatever in it had to be in. So everybody's scrambling to get those last ones you couldn't get, and because the lines were so full, they actually extended the time to the next day till noon that you could get those turned in. Well, this last election, the same thing happened. We had 20 or 21 that we tried to email and fax in over an hour and could not get all of them to send. And at 3 after, all of mine sent because it was so busy and congested, you could not get a fax through. So that doesn't fix that because it's going to happen Thursday as well as Saturday. I just don't see that this is going to change a whole lot other than it's going to give the Election Commission an easier time to do their job and be more transparent. But for the Election Commission, maybe something they could do to help all of us is to have their own line for each of our districts. So we all aren't trying to fax everything in at the same time, and we won't lose votes. Because I lost 20 in this last election because I could not get them in.
But I think you're talking about absentee ballot requests, though, right?
Yes.
Because people cannot fax or email in their actual ballot.
Yes, well, I'm
right?
talking,
Just to-
that's, yes,
Right.
I'm talking about that, yes.
Yeah, to clarify that.
To clarify,
Okay,
yes.
thanks.
All right, anybody else? Okay, we have a motion and a second, and we've had discussion. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Let's do a, yes. Poll the council, please.
Darrell Legg.
Now, wait, before we start, so basically an aye is you're for this and a no is you're against. All right, let's go.
Darrell Legg. No. Wes Snowfire.
Yes.
Dora Petzkowski.
Yes.
Joshua Sam.
No.
Mike Shambaugh.
Yes.
Melvina Shotpouch. No. E.O. Smith.
No.
Condesa Teehee. No. Victoria Vasquez.
Yes.
Keith Austin.
Yes.
Danny Callison.
No.
Julia Coates.
Yes.
Sean Crittenden.
Yes.
Joe Deere.
No.
Mike Dobbins.
Yes.
Rex Jordan.
No.
Johnny Kidwell.
No.
8 yes, 9 no, motion fails.
All right. Number 5, and this is for discussion only. Rex, would you take that?
Yes.
No, wait.
No, this is sports
Yeah.
team.
Um,
EO had.
EO, that's yours. Take that one, please. Number 5.
Yes. I'm coming. Discussion on Cherokee Nation Sports Team Funding Program, Assisted Policy and Procedures.
Okay,
Put that
made a
form of
motion.
motion.
Anybody give a second? All right, we have a motion and a second. Discussion for discussion only. So I believe the question has come up actually for both of these, basically about funding. Can there be more money added to the programs? So does anybody have anything to say? Doc?
If we could have Jody come and tell us how much we have budgeted this for and how much is actually spent on this up to this point.
For this year, we have, sports team is $72,000 budget. Of course, the last 2 or 3 years the spending's been pretty low because of COVID. The pre-COVID number spent was $65,500 in 2019, so, if you change, it's going to be hard to determine, it's been discussed of having 2 different funding categories, whether raising the 500 to 575 and then also creating a new category for a lower percentage of the team being tribal citizens. What I'd say is we'd probably just add 25,000 to the budget and kind of see how it flows out if something like that is passed to change, a different category or something, because there's no way of guessing how many teams are going to qualify for a lower percentage of the team being Cherokee citizens. So, and that won't be an issue, coming up with 25,000 or whatever number we want to add to the total budget.
So is it possible we could do both?
Yes.
That'd be a winner right there.
Okay. And during this process too, there's some, changes that need to be made to the policy. Just kind of, one thing is the policy says 14 county service area, and of course we need to update that to the Cherokee Nation Reservation. And also, it used to say the documentation they turned back in was 6 months, and we'd kind of internally changed that a few years back to 3 months because we were having problems with people trying to apply for a new funding in the new fiscal year when they still hadn't turned in documentation, so we'd shortened that to 3 months. So that's just kind of some record-keeping changes. But yes, I mean, you can, whatever kind of changes you want to make to the percentages and the actual funding amounts, that's up to you guys, and we'll work with the budget to make sure it fits.
Candace?
Well, I just think this is a wonderful program. I know that there are a number of teams that have been able to, get that 51% and get that funding. I would love to see kind of 2 tiers of funding. A tier for 51% and above that awards $575 to those teams that are 51% and above, and then teams that are 33 to 50% receiving a modified amount. I would, kind of throw out there maybe $300, $250 to $300. Of course, everyone's going to have their own opinions on that. But considering that the full amount, even in pre-COVID times, has not been fully expended, and if we were able to add a little bit more into that fund, we would just be supporting more, I think, Cherokee citizens who are trying to get into these sports leagues and play sports. Most of us know that our kids are probably more sedentary than they used to be, and I would love to see us having 2 tiers to support those Cherokee kids who aren't able to get on to 51% or higher teams of Cherokee citizens.
Joe?
Also, the Tulsa, I hardly ever use this funding because most of the teams in Tulsa travel, and they start traveling at 7 years old. So, and a lot of those Cherokee kids are split up on these teams. I mean, you got really good players over there, but there might only be one. So I don't know how we can do that. So I brought it up. I mean, with the funding, I know EO and some of the smaller towns, they go through their money really quick. And I guess I would be allowed to transfer some to Telequal or Stillwell or some areas like that, or not?
It's just all one funding source.
Okay, so that's not, We don't have
That's
to worry
not an
about that.
issue. Right.
Okay, good, because yeah, Tulsa, I mean, we hardly ever use any of that, so I don't know about Keith's area, but yeah, that's all I wanted to say. But I agree that the funding should be appropriated to different ways, 33%, 25%, 51%, because any support we can give these kids, we need to give them.
Somebody else was over here. The EO, was that you? Okay, Daryl?
So probably the average baseball team or T-ball team has maybe 10 players, right? I mean, that's about what I'm looking at in my area. What if we did $50 per Cherokee kid? And then that way, if you're on a team of less than 51% and they got maybe 4 Cherokees, they get $200. And I'm just throwing that out there for discussion.
So exactly how much do we give right now per team?
It's 500 per
So
team.
what would be financially would be able to do without giving too much per team?
Anything, if you hit 600 or more, the coach is going to get a 1099 for tax purposes and stuff, so the best is to stay under 600, so we just kind of threw out the 575 for that number. Now, like I say, if you do a lower percentage, different tier, 250, 300, whatever you want to do in that area would be fine, so. And
Yeah,
it's just going to be a guess the first year when we, as far as the total funding, because there's no way of predicting how many teams are going to qualify for the 25 or 33%, because they haven't been applying if they know they don't meet the 51% generally, so.
I think if we can afford it, we need to give as much as we can
Right.
without them getting penalized. So we
Right.
just need to figure what that
Right.
is. I believe I got Danny next.
Well, someone that spent 41 years doing this, I can tell you right now that most of your towns, if they're like some of them in my district, the sponsorship gets beat to death. They go from basketball, they go from baseball, they go all these softball, they've got all these. So the businesses in these areas, they have a really hard time funding these kids and what they do with them. So this is a really great program. There's no doubt about it. 51% would be, if you had 10 kids on your T-ball team, you're not going to be able to get it unless you pick up 11th kid. I know after I got out of high school coaching, I've coached Little League with my grandson and helped bring him up. So that puts you kind of in a precarious situation, because then you've got to pick up more kids if you get it, or you need the funding because it's really expensive, to be able to do this. You have to have your receipts, you have to order these things, and uniforms are extremely expensive, and how to run these teams. So this has been a blessing to people in my district to be able to get this. So, with that said, on Joe's issue, I don't want to, if we've got a travel team that's traveling, and 7 out of the 8 of them are Cherokee, and because they're not in a league, I think we need to look at that also, because these kids are still playing. Look at Sam Bradford at OU. Look at what they bring, and these other different things. So, with that said, it's extremely expensive to play anymore. And I'm the one to tell you that it really doesn't matter till they get older, how they do this, but able to help them and able to fund them. I think the nation helping their citizens. I know if you can get the 200, if you go down to Cherokee First and ask, but you've got to be 10 years old to be able to get that. So it is expensive, and they put a lot of money in this. So however we can help them and how much of a percentage we can help them, it's going to be good. It keeps them out of trouble, guys. They're playing baseball instead of sitting around doing nothing. They're playing basketball, they're wrestling, they're doing these things that develops character and stays with them. So, with my career in education, I just think anything we can filter on through our kids is going to be a plus.
Candessa?
Yeah, and for me personally, I would not support opening it up to traveling teams. I'm a parent who has had 2 different children on traveling teams and who has gone all over with traveling teams, and that's just, I think it would exhaust us. I think that we would see individuals who, we would see the funds exhausted. I think we do need to continue to limit it to league play, but that's just my opinion.
Sean?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think someday we're gonna have to address kind of what Darrell was saying about individuals. You know, I know Keith's area and probably Joe's, different ones, have a hard time getting that 51. So kind of what Darrell was saying, individuals, looking at them. Another thing, now I'm gonna be done here before long, but you will get this if you hadn't got it, the new council people. I got a cheerleader that's gonna cheer in Walt Disney World. What can you do, Sean? I've got a basketball player going to play in Germany, you know, and I know all of y'all have got that, but so far, all we can really do is tell them no. And Chief has a little deal, so how about calling Chief? Well, we're going to have to establish something here at the council office for things like that because they're getting more and more and more, and I hate saying no. Maybe $100 stipend, you know, for those legitimate trips that they're taking. We'll have to look at that, but I like the individual thing, the traveling teams, I like that, Mr. Calliston. But, I mean, some of those traveling teams, they just go one weekend and play one tournament together. Then they'll be with another team the next, you know, that'd be a slippery slope, but I'm for all of those kids getting money. But, yeah, this is good discussion here. But I would like to see some more of those individual things looked at and maybe developing a little pot for kind of like what the chief has, those situations where my little beauty queen's going to New York City. What can the nation do? And they're going to pile up if you hadn't got them already. So anyway, I'll support giving kids money anytime. So this is a great deal, and I think we got a little more head scratching to do on some other things too. Thank you. Thank you, Speaker.
Good points, I agree. Keith?
Yes, I do want to point out that these teams are small in number, somewhere around 10 to 12 kids. 51% essentially means 60% under that scenario because you can't, in a team of 10 kids, that basically means you're going to need 6 kids. So essentially it means 60%. That really doesn't have anything to do with the legislation, so to speak, except for the fact that we need to understand it really does mean 60%. And if we say 33%, that means 40%. So on the legislation itself, we need, or not the legislation, I'm sorry, the policy and procedures here. This is actually several pages attached to this, and we need to make sure that we're looking at each page. We've got the first page, which is the policies and procedures. And the second page continues that. The third page is the letter that they received, the applicants received, and we need to look at each of these things. We've heard the number thrown around quite a bit of 575, which I'm totally comfortable with, and I would like to go ahead and ask that be what we consider for a team with 51%. A team with 33%, I would like to propose $375. And that be the 2 levels. I would like to ask that the word approval, which is in that section that says selection, currently in F we are not taking a vote on those items, so are we officially approving that? That's just a question for maybe our attorney. Are we approving by the fact that we are not actually taking a vote?
These are for discussion only.
Yeah, today, both items are for discussion only, no action.
We would change it next month if we did.
Yeah, and if we need to change things in our policy and procedure, we need to get with John, and maybe we can get it on the agenda for next month. Because it's fast coming up. Baseball season is coming up, softball, basketball will be after that. So this is a good thing that we're doing is we're just going to do some house cleaning that probably needed to be done for a long time, and everybody's input has been really good. So, Jody?
I see what you're talking about, Keith. In the policy, it says final selection and approval. That probably just needs to be a change to, say, a list will be submitted to E&F or something like that, reporting of this, of those approvals, because we're actually approving them through the office verification, she verifies the blue cards and stuff like that. And I see where you're talking about, Keith, that the policy, policy does need to be changed to say that, because the way it reads, it's like you actually have to approve it, and that's not the way we've been operating it, so we do need to change that.
Okay.
The other part I would like to propose a change on, and this very well may be something we need to table to deal with later and work on together some in between. But I'd like to also work on the aspect of right now we are requiring the people to come in. I understand the reasoning for it, but I believe we need to come up with a better way to do that. That was very.
Go ahead, Jody.
I think we can work out, like we had discussed, where we can give the checks to the council members to hand out. I think we can work with that.
Absolutely.
And
Okay.
for some of you that's new, we had some issues in the past with people fraudulently turning in applications. And when we were mailing them, they were turning in applications in somebody else's name because they had gotten access to their information, and were actually turning in applications fraudulently. So when those checks got mailed out, they, of course, they weren't turning in receipts, so they couldn't do it in that same name next year, but that money was already out. So that's kind of the reason why we were requiring them to come in to actually show who they were. But we can work with, the council members to verify. They can either come again and get it, or we can give you the check if you know who they are and hand them out that way. That's a verification process I think we can work out.
Okay, one more thing I want to point out here before I yield my time. On the next page where it says Cherokee Nation Tribal Council Sports Team Funding Program Assistance Application, in the highlighted section there in the middle of the page, towards the end of that first line, it says, and reside within the Fort Lee County jurisdiction. Well, of course, that should say reservation.
Yes.
But the reside, we need to, are we checking that? Because when we have a sports team, say out of Inola, that the town is actually in the Creek Nation for the most part. I suspect we have not actually been checking that. Have we been checking that?
Yes,
in places like Wagner?
She does verify the addresses with jurisdiction
Okay.
as part of the process of checking to make sure that their citizenship is valid, because in the past, of course, we'd have some turn in their blue card and they had given up their citizenship to go to UKB or whatever. So we actually have access to verify the blue card, and she verifies address, especially if it's on the jurisdiction or reservation boundary. So, because we'll have some, like in Muskogee County, they may have, probably like in your case, they can be in Oktahoma and be in reservation, or they can be out of it. So we do verify those.
Okay, thank you. I was paying attention to that.
Yeah.
I yield my time.
Okay. if we have more to say, we can. I think everybody's in agreement that, do what? Okay, well, just hold on, let me finish. I think everybody's in agreement that we do need to increase this. And how we increase it, we're just going to need different ideas from different councilmen, how to increase it, and we can put it into some writing. So I think, with both of them, I think it's going to be a no-brainer for us. It just depends how we choose to do it. So, all right, I've got Johnny next.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As we go, it's funny, the discussion that we just got through having with Jody there, we're, validating addresses because, that softball player that's inside the reservation would get that $50 that the councilman has proposed or we talked about. But that softball player that lives 2 miles in the wrong direction is not worthy of that same money. I would recommend, and I know this is, this is a good a time as any, but much like our car tags, we would open it up to remove that residency or change that to where that they need to be Oklahoma residents. Because that softball team that's in Wagner, that happens to have meet that 51% Cherokee Nation, citizen, I think that they're just as worthy of that $575 as that team, as my old T-ball team in Spavinaw. They're no less Cherokee. Let's open this up to the at-large that live in Oklahoma. And if we're afraid that move is going to whittle down the dollar amount, like, some team in Lawton over there is going to have 51% Cherokee on a baseball team. Let's put a cap on that. Let's cap that amount for those that live that are Oklahoma residents that would live outside of the jurisdictional boundaries or off the reservation. But I think it's a great time to be able to be inclusive of and take that next step in both this and the one that we're gonna talk about next. That team that's in Wagner or that team that's in Tulsa, that's in league play. We keep it at league play. But if they have those Cherokee citizens on there, they're no less Cherokee than anyone else. I think that we should open that up to them. I think that'd be a good thing for this body to discuss. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All right, let's see, where am I at? Joe, do you have something?
Yeah, I was going to just say, take it a little step further. Counselor Kidwell has a young girl named Ryland Berry that we went to her school, and she just won, just 9 months ago, the national championship in gymnastics. Well, she lives in Broken Arrow, and now she has automatically qualified for the next Olympics. Her mother is a veteran. It works at one of our clinics, but she is not eligible for any funds. Well, to do the Olympic stuff, if any of you guys have ever played on that level, which I have, you're required to travel to Colorado Springs. You're required to travel to Florida, but we can't give her funding. We can highlight her in OCO TV, but when she gets to those deals, she always comes back and says, her mother sometimes was like, well, we got to go on another trip this weekend. She travels every weekend. But we need to find a way to help fund these people too, because that's an individual sport. And there's some of these sports that, she's great at what she does, but we got to expand on that. I mean, we got a chance for another Cherokee citizen, a young girl, that has already qualified the Olympics at 12 years old. We got to find a way to support these kids on different conditions. And I know there's a lot of different conditions that go, traveling sports and stuff like that. So, but I agree, we need to look at this. So it's a great discussion, EO. I'm glad you brought it up and started it, So, but I was just going to bring that up. There is individualized sports like that. There is no team when it comes to that. I mean, I sure don't want to be flipping down a mat on her team. So, but that's all I had to say. Thank you.
And I think that is exactly what the point Sean brought up earlier. Yeah. Same thing. So, Wes?
Yeah, there's a thing I want to bring up. I do like the idea of increasing it up to the maximum that we can, that we've discussed here. Now, the 51% requirement threshold, I like keeping that as a must. And the reason why that is, growing up around here locally, and there wasn't any money that Cherokee Nation provided to us back then. I mean, we had iron on numbers and iron on our own names, and we figured out how to make it work. But there was pride in being an all Native American basketball club. There was a pride in being an all Native American t-ball club. And whenever this was brought forward many years before we were all in this council, to start doing a program like that, that was the idea, and the intent behind it is to make it a prideful Indian team that needed help with getting some funds. I know a lot of our districts, we represent some really poor districts, and it allowed them to be able to compete and help them fund to compete with other teams that didn't have a problem raising the funds. And so this was our way of helping them raise those funds. And if we lowered the 51% requirement, one is I think we'd definitely lose out on that prideful Indian team to fund. The other thing is it would also look at possibly being money not being allocated to help Indians. It would be helping a team that had, well, we recruited a couple of Indians to get this money, 2 or 3, maybe 4 Indians to get that 25%. And then you lose the whole Indian nature of it. So I definitely think we should still look at keeping that 51% requirement. I know it was brought forward a year and a half ago, and the council then didn't move that needle at all. I think we shouldn't move it either today or in the future. I think we could move the needle, though, for the income or the amount to be given out to each team. Also, I don't want to see that deplenishing those accounts if we start lowering that threshold. I think there'll be a lot more teams try to get, 2 and 3 kids, 4 kids to get on a team so they can get $500. Then my district and my citizens who are putting together an all-Indian team are going to lose out trying to get their $500 awarded for their team. So just a couple of thoughts on that, but I do like the idea of raising that money up to a higher amount. So appreciate it.
Sean?
Just real quick, this sounds to me like, dealing with our youth, of course, our priority, one of the highest ones, our youth. This sounds like an old-timey work group thing where we've all got ideas, and, Mr. Smith deals with the kids a lot with sports, and I think this is going to be one of those things that, I could say, hey, we ought to do this in the future. Well, that may die out in an hour. But to really sit down, I don't know how many can be on it, just not a quorum. But we've all got great ideas. So I'm thinking this is the old-timey work group thing to talk about. So just my 2 cents, Speaker. Thank you.
I think you're right. And we do have some people in here who have, that kind of background, who've done things that could have some really good. And we have parents here who has kids who's played. So everybody here has been impacted by this, and we know the importance of this. We'll just make it work. I have no doubt. Melvina?
Wes mentioned poor towns, and this is a good idea. We have many teams in J, but our community comes together. We just cook a few more Indian tacos, maybe throw some more hog meat in pot, and we've sent several teams and several individuals from our little town, and I'm so proud of them.
EO?
Yes, for years I've seen teams that couldn't get the money because they didn't have the full amount of Cherokees on it. But now that there's more cards out due to the $2,000 more people register, but I've seen so many kids that mom and dad are Cherokee, more Cherokee, traditional Cherokee, but they don't go get the cards for the kids like they should, so they were always missing out. That was kind of why I was wanting to lower that. But now, I maybe give it a year and see, with all these new cards, we may not have near as much trouble getting kids qualified, but I'd definitely be for the raise. A little point on the traveling teams, if 90% of the kids that play on the traveling teams play on a league team, so those kids would be virtually double dipping. And those traveling teams, they don't hold together. If you're hitting the ball real good right now, well, you're going to go up to so-and-so. You're not going to stay on that team. So that's why we never did do I believe that's why we never did do the traveling team, because they don't stay set for a whole year, and they're just like free agents. And I got kids play on travel, so, that's something we would need to think on. But, would love to see that, reduced amount of money for some teams, because there's some teams, because a lot of times, you get your elite teams, and then you come along and you got this team that nobody wants. And you got a coach that takes it, and this coach don't have no money. And I've just said it so much for years that, $350 would tickle them to death. And that's some of the Cherokees that would really need to be helping. So, thank you.
Wes?
One quick thing, I know a couple of people had talked about individuals, individual athletes trying to get something with those youth. I've always referred to, and I even had, we have a kid that's a junior PGA national team member, and whenever he had to travel, Cherokee First. I mean, that's the best place to send him. You send him down there, they do a little bit of, community service with an elder, and then boom, they learn a little bit about themselves too as a young kid. They get that money, and then they can go on that trip. And I think it's a great way to start off, and it actually would be more money that way than $50 per individual. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention if they haven't known that yet.
That's where I've been referring people to individuals to, is Cherokee First. Anybody else? Okay, I think we're all in agreement this needs to be done. We just need to get together. I think we need to have a work group made up, and we can't let this go by the wayside like some of the things do. Like Sean said, oh, that's a great idea, and you don't hear about it ever again. We need to get on this. We need to get together and make it happen. So, all right. Anything else? EO?
I would volunteer to run a work group if we want to pursue this heavy.
I'd volunteer for the work group.
Like maybe start next week. Yeah. We'll get together. If you're interested, let me know. We'll start. Can we
Okay.
do that?
No. Daryl?
Would we be breaking quorum if we all wrote down an idea to hand to the work group? Can we do that if we have an idea or suggestion towards this, and then we can?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. As long as we're not physically. Or email.
Be okay to do that, John?
Right.
Like if they had a work group with less than a quorum, but all of us wrote down an idea or suggestion towards this and handed it to the work group?
Shelley, in the past, when we've
Okay.
committee work groups, how have we done that? So if we want to do that today, okay. All right, well, that, we can start one today. And the way that we've done it in the past is we take volunteers. We can't have over 8 on the committee. EO will be in charge. Shelley will, after we get members, she will get with the EO and then figure out when we're going to have meetings. So, we've had several hands up, so who would want to serve on this board too? I know I would too. One, two, three, four, five, six.
Josh.
Sean?
Speaker,
Yes, sir.
I was just gonna defer. Josh is really heavily in the youth stuff, so Adair County wise, I was gonna go with him and leave room for anybody else, but
Okay.
If,
So you're not getting on it?
I would, if we don't have enough. but
Okay.
That was my thinking.
That'll work. Okay, well, if anybody else wants to get on, then they can get with Shelley, but right now, that's what we'll start out with, and just put Sean on the email too. We'll just have to work with Jody and John on wording and what we can and can't do. And then we need to present it to the council, and we'll make it happen. All right, we are running very short on time, but I have a lot of faith in Josh Sams getting this next meeting done really, really quick. All right, that'll do discussion for 5. So 6, Rex, take that, please.
This is the Cherokee Nation Junior Livestock Premium Auction Funding Program Assistance. I'll put that in form of a motion, don't I?
Yeah, we don't have to. We just it's open up for discussion now.
Okay.
Go ahead.
On the amount that we give to the county right now to each child that makes the auction is $100. And what I would like is to propose to raise that to $200, just at your local premium auction. Because right now, the district is $200 and the state is $500. I'd just like to leave those like they are, but at your local premium auction, I'd like to raise that to $200.
Is budgetarily wise?
Similar to the other, right now, we're, the budget's 67,500. The highest we've been in the last few years is 56,700. So, we may add a little bit, to the total budget. If, I might make a suggestion that, I know it's 2 different subjects altogether, but
Put
we
them
might
together?
combine the work group.
Good idea.
Just to kind of discuss those items too.
Going on it?
If that's,
That's a good idea. Just consolidate the 2 and go ahead and put Rex on that also. We have room? All right, cool. You're already on. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, in my district, I was, very generous with the FFA because just like, I met with a lady the other day and when I pushed for kids, she said, oh, the only reason you pushed is you coached. That's not true. I see some of the things that happen through public schools there every day for 41 years. And we can't ever, it's not, for example, if a community has to pay $20,000 to keep a pool open, they've lost on the pool. That's not true. That $20,000 is going to keep kids out of trouble and keep them going in the right direction, teaching them responsibility, making them get up and do this. And I know Rex and I visited this morning. The point is, these kids do just as much as any athlete or anything else done. And it's a really great program. And you guys all know that, but I'm just throwing my 2 cents out there.
Johnny?
Yeah, just real quick on the livestock, one thing to consider, and I'm just throwing it out there, but open that up again to the Oklahoma citizens, not letting the at-large be eligible for the local, but making them eligible for the district and state.
Rex?
The thing is, right now, we can't do that. I'm telling you, Cherokee Nation can't do it. You can go to Oklahoma City this week, there's thousands of kids showing at the state level. There's no way that we could ever afford it. We just couldn't do it. Not that I wouldn't like to, because I would. I'd be the first to join in, but I just don't think Cherokee Nation can do it, because the fairgrounds up there is covered with kids showing, thousands from all over the state.
Anybody else? I think it's a no-brainer too that we'll do whatever we can to get kids more money in this program too. And I know this council, I think they'll approve it. They'll be for it. Okay, if there's no more discussion, let's go to item number 7. Victoria, would you take that, please?
Yes. This is a resolution authorizing the principal chief to submit certain grant applications and execute certain grant awards. And before I put this in the form of a motion, I would like to have some additional comments about why we're doing this.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. It's recently come to our attention that Cherokee Nation was unable to apply for a USDA grant without a waiver of sovereign immunity based on some new language that was included. This grant, like most, is extremely time-sensitive. There is new language in USDA grants, possibly other federal grants that requires a waiver of sovereign immunity to apply for the grant. This new addition will not only complicate the grants application process because of council meeting schedules, waivers go to rules and do not formally pass until the second week of the following month, but it would cause us to lose the ability to apply for some federal grants based on time frame. This was made apparent for us during a recent USDA grant application, which contained the new verbiage. So we're being asked on behalf of our grants department that you would be willing to hear this in this Rules Committee so that Cherokee Nation does not miss out on opportunities to apply for grants like this one in the future. I move for its approval.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Wes?
Do we have the director of our grants writing department on call or anything that can bring a little bit more awareness to this? I don't know if they're on there. I don't see them. The only reason why I ask,
Someone's coming.
Somebody's coming here.
is someone here is coming,
I believe
okay.
so.
I was wanting to ask them what grant.
Hi,
Hey, how are you doing today?
good, good.
What grant in specific, and did we miss it?
It was, specifically, it was a USDA Rural Business Opportunity Grant, and we just submitted it without the assurance page, and they may decline to look at it because we didn't submit the assurance page.
Okay, and that assurance page would have been brought for the council for the authorization to
The
submit
whole
that
grant would have had to have been brought before the council, and this is just one example, but it occurs in other federal grants as well.
And when's the date cutoff for that grant that you're discussing about? When was that date cutoff to be
It
applied?
was 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago? Mm-hmm. And what was the time frame? I mean, I guess, did they just apply for this? They just put this grant out and shut it off within a week?
We usually have about 45 days from the time they announce it until the time it's due.
Okay, so then that should give plenty of time for this council to pass a supporting application for that grant.
I don't believe so. When the grant notification comes out, then we have to get it to the departments, and the departments have to determine what kind of project they're going to write it for. And then we would have to create a tribal council resolution and bring it before the Rules Committee, and then bring it before the full council, and that would be almost impossible to do within 45 days.
How many grants have we missed due to this? Because since I've been here, I've seen quite a few grants come forward that needed authorization, and we've passed them and had no problem until now.
Usually, this language was just noticed, and usually it is only one agency requires us to have a tribal council resolution, and that would be some BIA grants, but the rest of them don't require that. And this is submission, and it requires. It would be, what the specific language was, is that USDA may enforce this agreement by suit for specific performance or by any other available remedy under the United States laws. And so that agreement by suit, and Sarah can correct me if I'm wrong, is the language that constitutes some kind of sovereign immunity waiver. And these are in the application process. So this is for a grant before we ever receive it, before we're ever awarded. And so, and then language like this again appears in the award documents.
Okay. Well, from where I sit, after looking at this and discussing it and being brought forward today without having, any other time to look at it, it was just laid upon our desk today. I definitely think that it could be brought back up at the end of the month, so we have a little bit more time to look at it and have more time to discuss than today would allow for, because I'm assuming it doesn't need its permission today. And also that, I don't want to change the way we do things all because there was one missed grant opportunity on something that we just found out that there was a rule that was changed. We also have the ability, per the chief, he can call a council meeting within 10 days, so that could help expedite something. If there was a massive grant that came forward and we were nervous as beyond belief, we need to hurry up and get this done, well, I think there's been, several times in the past year that we've had a special council meeting called to get that approval for you. So I definitely think that, I'm glad you brought this up and brought it to our attention, that, there's something that might have been missed, but changing and encompassing all of our grants to follow this law, I don't think is necessary.
And let me just say, this is just the USDA example. Other federal grants contain this same language, so it would apply to more. And right now, we're in the middle of grant season.
Right.
And if you postpone this to the end of the month, that would give us the opportunity to miss grants within the next 2 to 3 weeks.
So last grant season, did we miss a lot?
We didn't miss them because of this assurance. This assurance was just caught. This language was just caught. It's not necessarily new. It's something that we've signed off on before, but it was just caught by an individual who sent it to the AG's office, who came back and said, you need a blanket resolution in order to apply for these types of grants.
Okay.
And so it will implement, or it will affect more than just the USDA grant.
Well, I would like to see more. I'd like to see more, and I think that's where I'm trying to get at. Maybe by the end of the month, we might have more knowledge of what other grants that you're witnessing. I don't want it to put it saying, well, it's just your grant department and they just found out about it, it's too late. We should have had this done so that way you wouldn't have to run into those problems. And it may have just been an oversight that was missed by your department. I don't want to change the law in order to be able to, if we made a mistake or didn't catch something, we just have to be more proactive at catching those changes. And I don't feel like it's necessary to change the whole thing just yet, until we get more knowledge, and maybe that can be brought back up at the end of the month if we decided to do that. That would be where I'm at on it. I may make a motion to do that later, but I definitely want to hear from some more discussion.
I certainly understand, and that would give us time to miss additional grants.
Yeah,
so.
I think that could be a good idea, but I definitely want to hear from some
Because
other comments.
we submit over 200 grants a year.
Yeah, y'all do a lot of
It's an
work.
extremely large volume, and this, again, is in the grant submission process.
Yeah. So, okay, awesome, appreciate it, Speaker.
Well, just make a quick comment. I'm going to support this. Whenever I was contacted about getting this on the agenda, they're very apologetic because of the lateness of it, but at times there are things that happen that you just didn't see coming. On occasion, we've waived sovereign immunity before. We've done different things. I don't see this as that big of a deal as Councilman does, but I think we should do this, and we should give our grants division every opportunity to get whatever we get. And it is a big deal to miss one. Any missed opportunity is a big deal when you're talking about a service that could be applied to our people. So that's my thoughts. Danny?
Yes, ma'am. There's not any of this going to be detrimental to the Cherokee Nation. It's all going to be helpful, and it's going to push the nation forward with these grants. Is that the case?
That is true.
Who is next? Sean?
I'd just like to say I'll be supporting this. Been some great decisions made here recently in the last few years, and things like this we approve and watch, and it's been so good for the Cherokee people. Things like this, just to watch how many elders are helped, the youth, and just education. And they brought a respected lady to speak today that helps me daily, and has since I got on board here. So, Anna, and Sarah, niece, all of you. So I'm excited about seeing the good thing that this is going to bring. So, thank you, Speaker.
Yep. Anybody else? Candace?
You mentioned that there will be grant opportunities missed if this is pushed back to the next Rules Committee meeting. What specifically are those grant opportunities, and how many are there that will be missed?
I don't have that information off the top of my head. I will just tell you that grant season has started, and we submit probably an average right now of 4 to 5 grants a week.
Anybody else? Okay, that will end discussion. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay. Two, yes. Okay, that brings us to announcements. Are there any announcements? Joe?
I was going to do it earlier. I didn't expect this meeting to go that long, but I've been asked to clarify the Ukrainian flag. Obviously, we know about the solidarity for Ukraine, and people's like, why is Cherokee Nation, why am I doing that? I have Ukrainian citizens that live in Tulsa, and you guys saw that on news. Actually, my brother-in-law is Ukrainian. He's now a U.S. citizen. So we talk about how they are getting pushed over Russia into Ukraine. That symbolizes, and the same thing that Cherokee Nation and the tribes here, when the U.S. came over and told to assimilate, so it goes on to boarding schools and everything we were forced on. It's like a big brother. And so with that is the explanation of the Ukrainian flag. So I do support that because they are trying to be taking over people's land for minerals, money, benefits. The same thing when the United States come into tribal nations. They discovered us and they wanted the land, and they gave us two ways, either assimilate or they will use the military to take over. So I just wanted to give that brief explanation of why that flag is there. So, Slava Ukraine, that's it. Thank you, Speaker.
Any other announcements? Just want to say really quick, good job today, Council. A lot of good discussion, even though we don't agree. And I know Robert's Rules says that, we shouldn't go back and forth, but dadgummit, we got to communicate here. And as long as we stay civil and we respect each other's views, I have no problem with it whatsoever. I think it's a good thing, as long as we can respect each other. So thank you for that. With that, our next meeting is tentatively scheduled for Thursday, March 31st at 1 p.m. Anita? Second. All right, for adjournment. All in favor? We're adjourned.